Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday and welcome to Scottish Watches and our show Call the AD. I'm Arthur. I'm Tick Tick Vroom on Instagram.
And I'm Stephanie. I'm She Watches the World on Instagram.
And this is our weekly show where we go deeper on one topic live with you all here on YouTube and try to have some fun with it. This week we're going to be talking about the watches for Mars.
I'm super excited about this topic. So obviously I'm a huge space geek. Space, is my life, both professionally, but personally I'm a big fan. I'm wearing my Occupy Mars shirt today, kind of a remnant of the Occupy Wall Street movement, but a fun spin on it. Anyway, we thought it would be really fun to talk about watches that you would want if you were going to go on an expedition on Mars, in celebration of the Perseverance landing that just happened this week, which was incredible and crazy. And, I know some people who've been working on that program for, a decade, if not 15 years at this point. So to see this major success and the pictures that come back from it are really amazing. And there's been a lot of talk about watches in space, and we'll certainly do a little bit of that. But I thought it'd be fun to be a little bit more forward-leaning and forward-thinking, right, and looking at, I don't want to wear an Apple Watch. What would you actually want to wear? What complications would you want? And then take a look at some of the watches that have already been designed or thought about for Mars.
Because some brands are starting to think about it and have actually made some very interesting watches.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, please like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you know when we go live in the future. And you can follow us on Instagram at callthea.d to keep up to date on what we're up to. But so we'd like to introduce a guest this week. And the connection here is really, I think when you think about brands that have started to be more forward looking on space, it's really more the creativity of independent brands where that shines through. So we have a friend of Scottish Watches, Pietro from the limited edition, who's going to be here with us today to talk about particularly the innovation of some of the independent brands that are looking forward with space. So we're going to bring on Pietro here. Good morning or good afternoon.
Hi, Pietro.
Yes, here I am. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Arthur and Stephanie. And thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to just, we've certainly heard you on Scottish Watches before and your other media channels, but do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and what the limited edition is and what you're into?
Yeah, I can't help not being with Ricky and the boys at Scottish Watches every now and then, because I have so much fun talking with them, about watches and the funny things in life, because I think that the spin they put on and you guys all put on watchmaking is great. Watchmaking is much more than just an art of making watches, but it is a big metaphor in so many aspects of life. So yeah, we are the limited edition. We are a platform fully dedicated to the world of independent watchmaking that was underground and obscure until a few years ago, and now is taking the role of protagonist for so many collectors around the world. So in 2015, I basically saw that compared to the mainstream brands that you can find in your local AD pretty much all over the world, there was an underground world of incredible artists that didn't get the recognition and the visibility that they deserved, in my humble opinion. So we started as a trial, as a small entrepreneur. We started to put them all together under the same roof, and we discovered that there are thousands of watch lovers around the world that are both fascinated and interested in these niche watchmakers.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I think it's great. This is a world that I don't know much about, and I'm trying to learn more and more because, frankly, it's really interesting and it's exciting, and it's not seeing the same things over and over again. So, thank you for bringing attention to these brands, and so we can learn some more about them. They are just really fascinating and interesting and different.
Yeah, and the collection of brands you've managed to put together in one place is really cool. And for me, who's still learning sort of the space of the creativity of independent brands, even just browsing the site has been educational and really cool.
No, it is interesting because, like in any business, mainstream brands, they glorify, they enhance the research and the development of small engineers or small how can I say smaller artists that don't have a platform to really reach the world. So independent watchmaking has always existed as a platform. If you think about the Omega coaxial story, obviously the coaxial escapement having been developed by George Daniels back in the days, that's a perfect example. So what we are only doing, with our modest endeavor, is to really give more light and more credit to those that are behind these incredible stories.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Very
Great.
cool. Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. And this should be a fun topic. And looking forward to kind of your take on a few of the independent Mars pieces that we found.
Yeah.
So maybe daunting topic as well, because it has to be written yet. It's a blank canvas, isn't it?
Which is great. And maybe actually before we get into some of the things that I've thought about specifically for Mars, there's obviously a long storied history of watches in space and a lot of disagreement about first watches in space. Everybody talks about the Speedmaster, of course, and we don't have to delve into the full history of watches in space. I think that's been a topic that's well worn. But you have an interesting story, right? Of what the anecdote of like the real first watch in space.
Listen, because we are here and we are free to say what we want, we're gonna add a bit of confusion on the already confused genealogy.
Let's add fuel to the fire. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Because obviously there's first watch in space, there is the first self-winding watch in space, there is the first automatic watch in space, there is the first Swiss watch in space, there is the first the tribute to the first endeavors that came out recently by Tag Heuer. But there is a story that is totally underground, and I'm only lucky to have discovered about this, because we have one of the things we specialize on is Russian watchmaking. And everybody knows that under the radars, the Russians are always developing things before anyone else. And things happen very much that way in the 60s when the space race started. And in 61, months before Gagarin actually went for the first time to space with his watch that, it's still debatable which watch exactly Gagarin was wearing, but it was definitely a Russian watch, because at the time Russian was a fully autarkic society. Before that, the Russians did some tests with dogs that they were sending in space, and there is a proven and certified expedition. That was the name of the expedition I haven't been told, but it was a Vostok spacecraft that was sent in space with a dog that was called Chernushka. And this dog Chernushka was equipped on his jacket with a mechanical timepiece that one of the engineers sneakily attached to his jacket. And as I will go to the brand that is actually now, how can I say, can certify this story, is the brand Raketa. Raketa is an historical Russian watchmaker. In those days, the brand was called Pobeda, and Pobeda was the name of those of a brand basically created by Stalin right after the war to celebrate the victory against fascism. So Pobeda became the most important watch brand from 45 to 61, and in 61 one of those watches went to space with this poor dog that was sent on his own, but made it back. The dog and the watch made it back, and because the engineer didn't, everything was fully recorded and as you may imagine, classified. So it should not happen that an engineer decides out of his own mind to send a mechanical watch with the dog. But he did it anyway, and because of that, the KGB made an investigation afterwards, and the engineer was nearly sent to the Gulag.
Oh man!
Yeah, I was promised by our friends at Raketa that they can fully prove and certify this. So I promise to send you and proof of what I'm saying here.
Yeah, wow.
I love that. It's just such a great story. And first off, Leica gets all the media press as being the space dog, but to have the story with another dog, that's really fun. I hadn't heard that one before. So
this was 61. So this was 8 years before the Apollo 11 mission. and it was a few months before Gagarin actually officially went
Before he
to
flew.
Right.
Yeah.
Does Raketa know what model it was or what it looked like or anything like that?
It was I wouldn't know about that. They barely know that it was a Poveda.
Okay,
Poveda,
right.
and it wasn't a Raketa because
right.
Raketa has 300 years of history from 1721. Imagine that, but they've changed name a lot of times depending on the drama and the flips of Russian history in the meantime.
Right,
So
I see.
Raketa, more than a watch brand, is a witness of the evolution of Russian history, which is really fascinating.
Oh, that is.
That's
very
fun.
cool.
That's a great story. I hadn't heard that one before. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's the watch that Ricky wears as well, a Raketa watch. So
Really?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Does he have the big zero? Is that the one he has?
No,
or is it the Copernic?
Copernic, yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
okay.
He has the original Soviet Union version and the contemporary one that has been relaunched recently.
Oh, very cool.
Okay.
Those are really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you prepared some thoughts.
I did.
Moving on to the Mars focus,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. I thought it would be fun just, one of the things that frustrates me about some of the major brands, and I'll just say like Omega in particular, is that there's always this focus on the past of commemorating historical events in space, which is great. And those are important things to celebrate. I would certainly like to see celebrations of more current achievements in space. But there's a historic look. But for this conversation, let's look forward. So this is the first picture that Perseverance took out the window, which I think is not even out the window, just it doesn't need a window.
Yeah.
The first picture that
With
Perseverance took, which is really amazing and incredible to see. And I hope it's getting everybody excited about what's ahead toward the steps that we're going to take towards eventually getting humans on Mars, which I think is actually very feasible in the not too distant future. So
yeah. So being an engineer, you put together a PowerPoint.
Yeah, Arthur and I are both engineers. We couldn't help ourselves. And go ahead and go to the next slide.
Sure.
This is just to like geek out a little bit about how into space we are. I somehow have myself dressed up with two pictures next to two different landers. The one where I'm in the white shirt, that's Phoenix. And the one on the left, I don't know. I'm wearing my Tiffany watch, watch in that picture. But that was a couple of years ago. It's
yeah, because one thing we won't lose if we go to Mars is style. So it
exactly,
will have to be style anyway.
Yeah, you know.
It looks like you're on the surface there.
Well, and if I was going to Mars, I would naturally wear a red ball gown and red lipstick and a Tiffany's dress watch. So that's perfect. And then just some funny pictures. Every year there's a big celebration. We call it Yuri's Day, but April 12th to celebrate Yuri Gagarin's first flight. And in DC, but also all around the world, there are Yuri's night parties, and they go all night. They're really fun. They're big dance parties. And that was from one a few years ago. I made you dress up, but I didn't make you see it.
Right.
I didn't subject you to having those pictures out. And then I got to go to a really interesting premiere for the National Geographic Mars special that they did, which is a fun series that's a mix of like a docu-series, but there's like a drama mixed in with a documentary. Anyway, you guys should check it out if you haven't seen it.
Do you think we will reach very soon cinematographic creativity like in the 70s, Star Trek and all the likes? Is that going to come back as well?
I think so. I mean, one of our favorite shows right now is The Expanse, and that has a whole, one of the three major, I guess, societies or groups that are fighting are the Martians, and it's kind of fun to see their take.
Humans that have moved to Mars at that point. Decades ago.
And how they've evolved. Anyway, I think it's a great show. Jeff Bezos is like personally keeping it going because he wants to see how it goes. But they've done some really good like scientific thinking about if people had lived on Mars for a few generations, how would they evolve?
Yeah, because technically there is a bad news on the exploration of Mars is that technically there are no Martians there yet. We are the most likely to become Martians in future.
I think so. Yeah, we're going to be the first.
That's true. It's a good point. That's a good point.
And then the last picture here, which I think is really cool, is we went to this amazing event at the Air and Space Museum here in DC, and Arthur and I had the chance to meet, an absolute legend in Scott Carpenter, and he was lovely and just could not have been more of a gentleman. He was wonderful to talk to and hear some of the stories that he had. So
did he talk about bridling, or was he?
we didn't actually turn the topic towards watches, but he was not wearing a Navitimer Cosmonaut.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Dan. I know Dan's on here, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's basically the guy responsible for Navitimer, or for Breitling making the Cosmonaut,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so all of this to say, Arthur and I are big space geeks, particularly me. You've caught on, and that's part of why we're so excited about this. But yes,
no, sorry to interrupt, but on a side note, without this incredible leap forward that has been made recently in space exploration, because I grew up in the 80s. When the whole thing, went down a little bit, and now to see this renaissance of the interest and the funds invested into something that becomes more and more realistic. The limited edition would have never existed because reading about what Elon Musk was doing in the from 2000 to 2010, and reading also about what Jeff Bezos was achieving at the same time, gave me really all the time the idea that if they're managing to accomplish what they are accomplishing, surely a small business promoting independent watch brands could have been viable.
Yeah,
and it could have not been too scary.
No, that's great.
Well,
I am just so thrilled that there's such an interest in space. And one of the fun things that I do on the side of my on the side of my professional career is talk to students who are trying to start careers in the space industry, and just to see so much excitement and the fact that they're clamoring for jobs for working for some of these startup space companies is really wonderful. And you mentioned the financial investment. There really is a space, I hope it's not a bubble, but a real boom in space investment right now. Every week there seems to be some new announcement of a space company going public. So just the infusion of cash that's happening right now, I hope that's all a very positive thing, and we're going to see a lot of new development.
Also, Bitcoin, fingers crossed, everything goes well. Will bring some extra funds, I think, to the
exactly.
To the SpaceX. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. And then all the successful space folks are going to want really interesting watches.
I hope so. There we go. Yeah, let's raise the price of those stocks so I can get some new watches. Anyway, so this was my Friday night thoughts of what I thought would be some interesting complications to have. So first off, just kind of as a baseline for those who are not as geeked out about Mars as we are, Mars has a longer day. It's 24 hours and 39 minutes plus some seconds. I'm sure someone in the chat will correct me. But starting with the 1976 Viking lander, they adopted this concept of having stretch time. So rather than having extra minutes or extra minutes added on to the end of the day and having everything get all wonky and crazy, they decided to just consider time stretched. So it's still a 24-hour day, but they call it a sol. But it makes you have to think about time
so every
differently.
Hour is longer,
yes.
So that there's still 24 of them, even though in Earth time it's 24 hours and whatever minutes.
Exactly.
Okay.
I love this called sol as well. It's very good.
Sol, yeah. But everything else stays the same. So hours, seconds, minutes are still the same, but the day is a sol, which I think is great. I think that's fun. But I think for a complication, it will be super helpful to have Mars time and Earth time, and perhaps multiple time zones on Earth, but generally in space, Houston is used as time. I'm assuming you're going from the US, but I guess Russia would use a different time zone. But whoever's going, whatever your home time is, I would assume Houston for now.
Also, can I just say the one thing that I don't know. We always say we love mechanical watches because they are absolutely useless in this time and age, because we don't buy a mechanical watch because of the information we get from the watch, but because of the fascination that we get from a completely anachronistic way of measuring such an important element like time. But actually, now there's going to be a big switch if we're talking about Mars, because we will desperately need a timepiece when we go there, And there won't be, I don't think there will be Wi-Fi available up there. we can manage all the things that we can manage here. So we well need a watch, actually.
That's true. I know some people are trying to work on Wi-Fi on Mars, but yes, that we definitely, I don't know. I would want to fly with a mechanical timepiece.
Right. And I think if you think really long term, you might actually need multiple time zones on Mars, because if you think about it, you may not have settlements in the same location. So you might need a Mars GMT with an Earth time with multiple time
I think by the time we're like living on different time zones on Mars, you're probably less concerned with all of the different Earth times, and
probably,
you know,
and we would have gone through the drama of who's gonna get there first and say, "This is my place, this is your place."
Right.
How is that gonna work? I wonder. Actually, that's
there's a lot of thoughts. That could be a whole like separate show of like the laws of Mars, which are pretty Martian law, which is pretty interesting. A couple other complications that I haven't really heard talked about or seen much that I thought would be interesting and useful to have is some sort of adjustable signal delay. So you could have like a stopwatch or a timer that would tell you how quickly your message was going back to Earth, and then you could hit it again to have a, you know, at least a reasonable estimate of when a message was going to get back to you. But that would need to vary because it's not a set time. It depends on where Mars is in relation to Earth's, and that can range anywhere from 4 minutes to 21 minutes, depending on how Earth and Mars are in relation to each other.
This is the current estimate.
So
we're going to send a message from Mars to, or the information we are getting from Mars now, they travel at this.
Exactly. So if I'm on the surface of Mars and I'm saying, "Hey Arthur, miss you," like if I click go, I know how long it will take.
The time is determined basically by the speed of light or radio waves between here and there. But because the two planets move relative to each other, it changes from 4 to 21. Oh, wow. I think it's around 10 minutes right now?
I want to say it was 13 minutes for perseverance.
That would be a useful complication though. So like if I spoke into the microphone and Pietro was on Mars, I would expect it would take 13 minutes for my communication to get there. And then if he responded immediately, 13 minutes for it to come back.
I think it'd be kind of neat.
It's not yet the time for live streams from Mars.
Not yet.
No, this wouldn't be possible.
But, you know, the way that spacecraft, they talk about it in terms of like spacecraft event time and Earth received time. So it's when a spacecraft received a signal or is sending a signal is the spacecraft event time, and then Earth received time. So that's just how you keep track of the communications. And you heard some of the mission controllers talking a little bit about this in Perseverance landing. So I thought I would.
I'm learning here.
It's, I mean, this is just highlights.
Me too.
And then some other ones that we thought, I don't actually know enough to know if this would be something that's needed, but a pressure equalization valve of some sort, because presumably if you're going from inside a habitat that's fully supportive of life and different pressure to going outside on walks through your Martian backyard, you may need some accommodate for that.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that because it depends upon what that pressure difference is and what the seals are like in the watch, I guess. Whether you need that.
So an after sales center would be a tricky thing to set up as well. Very true.
For sure.
Although the studies with the depth of the oceans that we've been conducting, on most of diving watches would be could become useful in that situation.
True.
Yeah. And then last one, I don't know if this is something that would need to accommodate for, but gravity on Mars is a little bit different. It's about 38% of Earth's gravity. I don't know how much that would affect the movements.
I'm afraid I cheated on this. I called Konstantin Chaykin last night, and he answered me from Russia. It was midnight for him.
Wow.
And he answered me like, of course, gravity doesn't impact the mechanical movement. So my question was simply if the watch we may gonna talk about later would actually be functional on Mars, and the answer is absolutely yes.
Great.
The 38% gravity. I'm a basketball player, and I find that very interesting in terms of that.
You'd be able to dunk pretty easily.
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't think. No, jokes aside, I don't think there would be, technically speaking, an effect.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, you got it straight from the source, so
Yeah.
that's.
Although, yeah. Now I'm thinking out loud, and whoever is in the chat, if you want to correct me and call me an idiot, but a tourbillon complication could be quite tricky because obviously tourbillon is a complication that was born to counterbalance the effect of gravity on the accuracy of the watch. So in terms of accuracy, gravity may have an impact. So big question mark.
Maybe you have to wind it more.
Yeah. Or a tourbillon just may be less useful because
Even
there's not
useful?
as much gravity to affect the timekeeping.
Yeah.
I did see one comment in the chat that I thought was very interesting. I actually can't find it now to highlight. Someone was saying, if you're living on Mars, you might find use in a double moon phase because there are two moons on
that
Mars.
Would be fun. Yeah, Phomos and Deimos. That's a great one.
I was going to say, definitely, I don't need a moon phase on Mars, talking about our moon, but there are Mars's moon, and that's a different ballgame.
That would be really fun to see. Yeah.
Maybe Chaykin can do that in the next version, the Mark IV.
Yeah. I also saw another comment about magnetic fields, which is a good one. It's different on Mars, so that would be interesting to know how much it would affect. As someone who has magnetized many of my watches, that would actually be pretty good to know.
Yeah. This Dan has the exact current delay.
Of course he does. Thank you for correcting me, Dan. It wasn't 13 minutes, 11 minutes, 22 seconds.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, let's move on to some. Actually, we never did a.
We are really brave to talk about these these specific topics. There's so much to be learned.
It's like never do math in public, right? Never go to engineering topics in public. But maybe before we go on to some watches, we should do a wrist check. I will go ahead and start. I'm wearing my NASA G-Shock. I was debating between wearing my red Casio and the NASA G-Shock, but this was the spaciest watch I had. So let me see that.
And I'm wearing, it's not exactly as high tech as some of the watches we're going to look like, but it does have a ceramic case. This is my IWC Top Gun Chronograph.
Nice.
One of my favorites. Nice. How about
and Pietro?
Yeah, I have a Russian watch, which is, let me do this. We love scouting and finding the talents of the future. So this is a 23 years old self-taught watchmaker who lives in Ingushetia, which is a forgotten area, of rural Russia. And this gentleman this young boy really is so much in love with watches that he's developed his own timepiece recently, which is completely handmade, except for the movement is outsourced. And his name is Rashid Tsoroev, and he's on our website, and nobody knows him. But the moment we launched it and we presented it to our collectors, we sold out all the first 20 pieces that he's making now as we speak. So it's a good story.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love hearing stories about kind of new up and comers. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, that looks really cool. And how cool that you found him and highlighted him, and that's probably going to be a big deal for his career too. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's very and again we come back to the endeavor of there's a lot of entrepreneurship, risk taking, and people like Elon Musk made set the path in that respect. And this guy is starting absolutely from nothing, financing every single screw, of his watch step by step. And he's at a point where, he already has a demand when he's 23. So
it's great.
20 years, 30 years from now, it could be.
That's awesome. I love this comment. It's definitely a Scottish Watches production because the wrist check came at 30 minutes.
It's on Mars time, stretched out time. That's what happened here.
Yeah, our friend Kay says Martian time, I guess.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, let's go ahead and go to the next item. Kind of, this was a fun story that I came across. So, while this was not an official JPL commission, around the 2004 landing of the Mars rover, some engineers who worked at JPL found
which is the Jet Propulsion
Lab. Sorry, one of the NASA centers in Pasadena, California, found this guy Garo and asked for a watch that would run on Martian time, so that extended time. And I think what he did is really neat. These are not super expensive pieces, though. Now I really want to find one, particularly one with the gold Mars dial. So the one that's the gold Mars dial, that's Martian time, and he slowed down an existing movement so that it just operates on Mars time. And then the one on the left is a dual Earth Mars time. So I just think these are neat. They're still showing up on eBay. He's still around making watches. I think it would be fun to have one of these. That just wasn't a story I had heard before.
No, I think it's brilliant. I think, and you know Stephanie very well, but the equipment the first pioneers of space exploration had available in those days was absolutely primitive in so many ways that now when you go to a museum and you kind of wonder how they could take such a risk, equipped in the way they were, when we know that even the computers they had available were far less powerful than a smartphone that we have now available just to chat with our mom and dad. This guy had a very, very neat and clean thought. If the day is longer over there, we slow down the beating of the watch to a lower frequency, and we get the time on Mars. So respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the fact that he was actually able to do it and keep them at a reasonable price is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah,
it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But
talking about kind of, early technology, I was such a brat in my undergrad class. In my orbital mechanics class, we had figured out how to basically do all of our homework for us by running these MATLAB programs. And my professor was an astronaut. She flew on the shuttle. She was one of the ones who deployed the Hubble Space Telescope, or was on the Hubble. She fixed it. She was on the Hubble repair mission. And she, we did all of our homework with MATLAB. And she's like, you guys got to do it again. When I was on the space shuttle, we didn't have MATLAB. And I was like, all right, fair point. Fair enough.
There is, like we said at the beginning, the watches in space has become a massive marketing platform.
It's great. Yeah.
But actually, watches before were, they had a functional meaning, and they were needed by cosmonauts to actually have one more tool. One of the things I respect about this Russian brand we talked about before, Raketa, is that still to this day, they collaborate with cosmonauts like Sergei Krikalev, who is today one of the most experienced Russian cosmonauts, and he developed one of the watches for them. And in terms, kind of leverage, but he wanted the watch to be 24 hours, for example. So you have this watch that is 24-hour display. Why? Because, of course, in space, you won't necessarily have an idea of the 2 cycles of 12 hours that we are used to. So he said, if we are serious about developing a watch for the space, it has to be 24 hours because it's always dark over there. So I have no idea whether it's in the morning or the afternoon and such. So I love this functional approach to develop watches that actually can be useful. And then obviously the marketing fascination and charm comes later as a secondary thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be neat to have one on space station to tell you how many times you're going to come up with sunrise.
Right.
Because you definitely need 24 hours, but if you had like a secondary indication of like night, day,
Isn't it like 90 minutes or
I think
something?
It's pretty fast, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about some watches. Let's go to
absolutely.
Yeah, so these are just a few examples I pulled of some quick ones that I'd found where brands had given special attention to Mars. So the first one is Omega X33, but this particular one, they had worked with NASA and a few other space agencies to give some consideration to Mars, though I don't think there were actually any major significant differences.
Like in terms of features,
right?
Or complications.
But I did want to highlight it. The second one,
it was still in a place where you can just issue a watch and call it Mars watch.
Right. Yeah. You can just,
whatever reason.
There's a red arrow. It's a Mars watch.
Yeah.
And then the second one I pulled up, this is Anna Korn did a collaboration with actually NASA, I think. They include the NASA worm logo, which I'm a big fan of. Actually, the designer of the NASA worm logo, that like old looking NASA, he just passed away this past week, which was really sad. But I'm glad NASA has brought back this logo. So this was one that was done leading up to the Perseverance landing. So it seemed, like a recent, issue
Yeah.
1, which I think is pretty neat, and it does the dual time as well. And then these last 2 are, from Independence and Pietro. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about them, but I think these really kind of exemplify the leading edge of brands that are thinking seriously about Mars watches, whether it's more the Louis Mornay, like getting people excited about Mars, and then the functional one of the Konstantin Chaykin. This is a watch you could actually wear on Mars. So these are brands that neither Arthur or I are super familiar with. I'd love your opinion on both of these pieces.
Yeah, as always, the independent watchmakers, they have embraced the challenge of getting into the nitty-gritty of understanding what it means to develop a Mars watch, rather than obviously waiting for the first cosmonaut to step foot on Mars and then call whatever watch is going to wear the Mars watch. So they want to get into the idea of how horology can help can help in integrating the systems that we have here on Earth with the new systems that will potentially be there when life on Mars will be something to be reckoned with. So the first approach from Louis Monet was kind of more holistic, in the sense that they decided to kind of inspire people to get interested in this race for Mars and integrate some parts of Mars on the dial of the watch. So the watch actually has a little aperture at 3 o'clock where you can see fragments of Mars soil, basically. So it's more of it's like a tribute to Mars, and a kind of an invite to how can I say to be fascinated with this new mission that we all have as humankind. The thing with Louis Monet is a classic brand. Louis Monet was the inventor of the chronograph. It was a groundbreaking watchmaker in the 19th century. So why is the brand doing this these days? It's because Louis Monet's philosophy was always to move forward and to break conformities, and to actually innovate and evolve. So Louis Monet always has this drive to try to go beyond, far and beyond. However, I love Louis Monet. I don't think this watch doesn't necessarily dig into the horological timekeeping kind of adjustments that we are talking about, and we would want to we will face when life on 2 planets will be possible.
Right.
What's the function on the right there? I just see it says Mars. Is there a function there?
So that's the aperture with the fragment of Martian soil.
Okay.
Oh, that's that there.
The dial is beautifully decorated and is a handmade, and it's exact depiction of a part of the Martian soil as we see it on a Mars map.
Okay.
But besides that, this is a Metropolis timepiece by Louis Monet, which is the same as the core collection of Metropolis that you will find in their catalog. Again, the fact, of course, that they have these fragments of Mars soil is very special, of course. But it's like more of it's a tribute to Mars rather than a neurological endeavor, as we said, into timekeeping on Mars. Right. If that makes sense, I hope it does.
It does. It's a good watch for now here on Earth to sort of connect with the romanticism of that exploration, right?
Correct.
Now I want to know exactly which scene this is on Mars. I was trying to think of, like, I'm going to go look up which mountain that is depicted or whatever it is, just to, but it's a beautiful piece.
There is a moon watch, same with the fragments of the moon, and there is also Skylink. You can find it on the Louis Monet catalog or on the limited edition. The Skylink is in the same aperture at 3 o'clock, has fragments of the space suit that was worn in a particular mission of moon exploration, if you like.
How fun! That's great.
There is a series of space pieces.
Oh, very cool. I'm going to see if I can pull those up here while we're talking.
NASA's really clamped down on keeping artifacts in house, so it's hard to get pieces.
Really?
Of historical missions now, but
all the
easier from the Russians.
Sorry,
it's a little easier to get materials from the Russians.
Oh, is it? Yeah, you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this Space Revolution ones, and
Ah.
let's see if we can find the moon one as well.
Yes, it's down. You will find it at the bottom, and the Skylink as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's the
yeah, they are.
Mars.
So
Yeah.
you see the Skylink and Mars.
The Skylink, yeah.
Ah, yeah. Very cool.
And the spacewalkers are
Spacewalker is really cool, but once again, no, there is no direct direct link with a technical feature that regards the exploration of space.
Right.
But they're all tributes and reminiscent.
They're beautiful.
They are beautiful.
Yeah,
cool.
very, very much so. Very much so.
Well, let's talk next about the Konstantin Chaykin, because that really just
Yes.
is an incredible piece, and I don't know enough about it. So
Let me pull up a good.
tell me a little bit about the movements that he's put in here, the dual time.
Yes, Konstantin took the whole thing to the next level.
No kidding.
And Konstantin is a self-taught watchmaker. He's considered to be a genius because he can do on his own, without being educated specifically in the field of watchmaking. He can master the most complicated sophistications in horology. So he embraced the challenge 3 years ago, which is for him is a very long time. But in terms of Swiss watchmaking, 3 years is absolutely nothing. There are brands that take 5 or 6 years just to develop their own in-house manufactured caliber, if you like. But in 3 years, he's worked through an incredibly complicated Mars Conqueror Mark I. That was his first concept piece that, besides dual time indication, it was also incorporating all sorts of other complications that were relative to the difference between timekeeping on Mars and timekeeping on the Earth. That concept watch proved to be too far, to be understood, if you like. So he worked on a second version that again stopped at the phase of the design, and he never produced, not even as a prototype, to then develop this third version that is called Mars Conqueror Mark III, that in his mind, besides the two previous versions, that in his idea were just there to develop exactly what he would have wanted for a watch that could finally travel to Mars. And in his mind, this Mark III that you see here is that watch. Why? Because rather than slowing down the pace of the Earth-like, mechanical movement, he decided to incorporate two movements, one that is measuring time on the Earth and the other one is measuring time on Mars, which is something that had not been done before. That is very easy to say, but fairly tricky to put together.
Yeah.
Especially when you also add your traveling time in the middle as well. So here you have 3 times indication. So you have your UTC time indication as the Greenwich, the Greenwich Mean Time indication, your home time, for example, of course, you are based in Washington, D.C., so you could decide to have your home time as well there.
Mm-hmm.
But the UTC is always useful, especially if you're an engineer, a cosmonaut traveling to Mars. You'll have your Greenwich Mean Time, your home time, and your Mars time as well, which is indicated as 6 o'clock. So it's a bit of a piece of genius from Konstantin that has gone, once again, like it happens all the time with independence, it's gone under the radar until when one of the big brands in 2 years they'll come up with a great idea of a Mars GMT, and the world will be absolutely astonished.
Yeah.
What's the red indicator by 9 o'clock there?
Okay, so the reason why the case has this spacecraft-like shape is, as always with Konstantin, not just an aesthetical feature. But you see the two crowns is a patented system of 2 crowns. Yes, one at 8 o'clock, one at 4 o'clock. Those are actually functioning. The left crown basically is the modes set. And every time you turn it, the color at 9 o'clock will change, because it will tell you, now you are on manual winding mode. Now you are on UTC correction mode, and now you are on MTC, Mars time correction mode, and the crown at 4 o'clock will operate those adjustments when the mode is set correctly.
That's amazing.
That is really cool. At first, you had mentioned it had essentially 2 movements in it. I thought it was 1 per movement, but that's actually even more ingenious and integrated to have it be this mode selector and then the sort of the setting function or interaction on the other one.
Yeah, no, it's all connected with 2 movements. I didn't mean that it was the sum of 2 movements, but it was like it's actually three indications all together.
Right.
So the incredible thing about Konstantin is that if you travel to Moscow and you visit his manufacturing place, which is an incredible place to visit, and then you can visit the Raketa as well, headquarters in St. Petersburg. You can really live the untold story of both Russian exploration of space and mechanical, watchmaking development that was relative to that, which is again a very untold story, because if you type it anywhere on Google, you'll find very, very little.
It's very true. I know so little about Russian brands, and now I just want to delve into it, particularly given all the space history. I need to add Moscow on our trip of our list of watch trips to take.
That's right. And there's the case.
There's a back.
Very nice.
Okay, that's neat. I hadn't seen that before. Wow, so clever. I mean, just beyond creative. I have a hard enough time setting my G-Shock. This is actually very good, elegant.
Yeah, this is, if you like, and I'm not one to say, having been the first doesn't make you the best if what you propose is not up to the game that you want to play. But in this case, we're talking about the first intergalactic timekeeper, because it is actually, to my knowledge, the first mechanical timepiece that masters those informations at the same time. And if you were going to go to Mars tomorrow, you could put on your wrist and you'll have your Mars time and Earth time, correctly indicated on your wrist. And it looks very cool as well, by the way.
It does. It does look neat. I'll have to talk to some folks that I know. I'm sure this is so far down on the list of things that people are thinking about in terms of actually going to Mars. But I'm glad someone is, right? There's at least one guy who is. But I wonder how you keep track of time while you're on your way to Mars, right? Do you just keep going on Earth time until you land on Mars? How do you keep track of the comms?
It's fun who you're talking to, right? If there's no one on Mars and you're headed there, you're probably talking to people on Earth.
On Earth, at least for the early missions.
I think and it's gonna be a little bit like when you travel from you travel the wrong way around the Earth, to move, let's say from Europe, you'll fly to Japan, and then from Japan to go to America, obviously, you go the wrong way around for us Europeans to America, and you completely, unless you have some kind of instruments helping you, there's no way you're going to keep track of what's happening. So the thing is that it will last much longer, I guess.
Yeah.
Though my rule when I get on an airplane is I always set my watch to the place I'm gonna be landing as soon as I board. So I wonder if
so maybe you would do differently.
Maybe I would do.
Well, if this watch should have both already ready. So.
Yeah.
I think, Stephanie, you're suggesting a next complication, which should be the universe time zone.
There we go.
Complication, whereby depending on the planet you're aiming for, or the zone between Mars and here, there should be different time zones.
Universal time, like true.
Not we patented today.
I think so. There's an opportunity there.
Solar. Well, would it be universe or solar system? Maybe solar system.
I think we can limit it to the solar system.
All right. We'll deal with that.
Well, Pietro, are there other Mars pieces we haven't thought about, or ones that you've come across?
So honestly, I'm stuck on this Mars Conqueror because somebody's GMT Galaxy time.
Galaxy mean time. I love it.
Very good. No, I was blown away by this Mars Conqueror, and for your information, we this was an 8 pieces limited edition, so it's only for the
Wow.
very few that will make it first, but they are all pre-sold. We managed to get 2 of them.
Wow.
And funny enough, we sold 1, but 1 is technically still available. And I'm just hoping that I can be successful enough from now to June, when this will be delivered, to maybe keep 1 for myself. I don't know if that will happen. I'm too good at sharing. No, there is another crazy watch, again from Raketa, the Russian watchmaker. Of course, as I discovered it, I'm not an expert and I'm not a watchmaker, so I just discover things as I go along. Basically, all the planets in the solar system, they actually revolve anti-clockwise on themselves and around the sun. I think there are 2 exceptions. I think Uranus and Venus, that they actually turn on themselves
The other way.
clockwise. But actually, Raketa made a great point of saying, we don't, why would we set all our watches to actually go clockwise when the entire solar system, as a fact of nature, actually works anti-clockwise?
The other way, yeah.
So there is a watch called Russian Time that actually shows the time counterclockwise. So you read the time the other way around, which is totally confusing for us. But then if you think about it, our way of telling time, it must be equally confusing to any child that initially starts to try to understand what's going on a watch, because it doesn't make any sense with nature. It doesn't make any sense in general.
Right. It's just what we get used to it. Clockwise is the way we do it, right? But if you introduce someone to it the other direction from the start, there'd be no difference to them, right?
And Arthur is a bit like, oh, sorry, Stephanie.
No, that's just a really neat piece. I'd never heard of that.
It's also on the website. You'll find it, and it's a bit like Arthur with Jimi Hendrix. Stepping his guitar the wrong way around and just getting on with it.
Yeah. Amazing. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, I guess let's say we've gone about 50 minutes. Maybe we could see if there's any questions for Pietro in the chat as well. I saw 1 or 2. If you asked them before and we missed them, you feel free to ask them again.
Anything about Mars stuff or independent brands, these particular pieces. Pietro, you're a wealth of knowledge of stuff we have no idea about. So this has been really fun.
Have a look at the comments in the next weeks. You'll find, I'm sure half of the things we discussed will be corrected in so many ways. But I'm fascinated. I think I have the curiosity that independent watchmakers show every day of their life in what they do. Sometimes they work anachronistically on researches that are just for the sake of unlocking certain parts of knowledge that we haven't managed to unlock yet, and I find that so romantic and fascinating. So I love learning about it.
Yeah,
we do have a request for you to show your watch again.
And let's see, maybe I can make you
and tell us a little bit more about it too.
Let's see if we can make your screen larger. So
it's a bit better like this, probably. Yeah, better. So it's a very neat, very pure design by Rashid Soroev. And as you can see, the dial itself, the hands and the indices are all hand manufactured by Rashid. Whereas the movement, which is a high grade ETA, it's lovely, it looks lovely, but it's obviously outsourced. And the case as well is outsourced and then just finished by Rashid. But this doesn't take anything away from the piece, because the watch is actually priced $1,500 US, which for what it is probably the cost of the movement itself.
Yeah,
right. To have anything made by hand in a watch of that price is really unique and striking.
I love the dial. It's great.
Yeah, it's pure. And this is the first prototype that I kept for myself, as now Rashid is completing his first production. You'll find the story of Rashid on the Watch Press. So the Watch Press is one of my favorite blogs, and on the limited edition as well, if you're interested, Ben.
Great. We can, after the fact, we'll add some links to that in the description for the video too, so people can find out more. That sounds great. Let's see. Koos, our friend Koos, is actually saying that movement looks a little bit similar to some of the ones that Panerai used before they went in-house. Is that correct to your knowledge? Do you know?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. And no, I wouldn't know. I was thinking, no, I'm gonna say something not accurate. I wouldn't know that. But on the watch press, you find the exact code of the ETA, movement. And I want to say the 2392, but I may be mistaken here. But Panerai, it's interesting because I was at Richmond when they started to develop their own caliber, and that was an adventure. And again, they took 6 years to develop that. So
Wow.
when I was mentioning Chaykin in 3 years basically developed the Mars watch, it's quite amazing.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool.
One thing that'll be interesting to see is how brands take on marketing of future space things, Mars in particular. Will there be more interest in this? And there's some comments here about first Omega on Mars, and I wonder if there will be this fight about the first one, or something unique about it, or trying to clamor for marketing opportunities. Yeah, and it all depends on who goes first, right? Whether it's
and it was good at
NASA or both.
Story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you, Stephanie, have a great point. I think as an engineer, you're interested in the why, I guess. And I tend to be on the same side. Yeah, it's good enough to say, yeah, that's the moon watch. But why was so important to have that watch and not another one? And of course, that question can't quite be answered in terms of the moon exploration. So Mars, maybe things are looking a bit different because it's such an incredible accomplishment, will be an incredible accomplishment when it finally happens. And second, I really love the idea of, will we need watches to accomplish that? And in that case, can watches really help because of their functionality rather than just for their aesthetics? So yeah, I'm wondering honestly. I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see if the space agencies commission something, right, with specific needs, and that's how a lot of how we got the fame of the Speedmaster. Or will it just be they don't need a watch and some astronaut will bring his his or her personal.
But even the Speedmaster was finding something commercially produced off the shelf
that
met the requirements.
It, right?
Yeah. It is true that if I was one of the commissioners of these big explorations, I would want to go to a genius like Konstantin to understand his thinking, because to get where he's got, it's because he has an understanding of how time works that goes beyond the normal understanding that we all have, as me, surely as a common mortal, if you like. But because they must have minds that think quite likewise in a way. So I would easily imagine a meeting between people of that caliber, understanding and try to unlock because it's still a big mystery, the understanding of this fourth dimension, which is time. That is still the thing that we can't quite understand as humans. I don't know if you agree.
I don't know. No, I do. Yeah. I would just love to run that procurement for NASA. How fun would that be to be in charge of going and having to figure that out?
Have someone with the actual passion for it too, right?
I saw a great comment in here of someone had suggested something similar to a JLC reverso, where you have Mars time on one time and Earth time on the other side. I think that's because I think that's a great idea. That's a fun way of displaying it.
In terms of the showcasing the time, yes, but in terms of how you get to develop the information, that's the real work that needs to be done. And also, you may argue that maybe, I don't know how they will be equipped on Mars, but it may be a bit difficult to be with
your gloves. Yeah,
but true. I love the idea. I love the idea for sure. I think we'll have to learn a lot.
I see another question here for you. From Nitin saying, I guess, are there plans for a Mark IV of the Chaykin Mars watch? Do you know? I wasn't aware.
It is possible, but it's like so investing is a big word, because I always say I'm not, how can I say, I'm not naive. I know that when you spend a lot of money on a timepiece, everyone would feel stupid if the timepiece was going to lose value or was not worth what has been invested. But in this case, we are talking about a potential history maker, if you like. So if it was me, I would definitely want the Mark III. I would want even the Mark I that will never be in commerce and it will be in a museum, basically. And on the Mark IV, we'll see what happens, but the Mark III will always be the first, and it's been produced in 8 pieces only, so that the risk is basically nil, in respect of having that piece in your collection.
Right. This is another interesting one from our friend Ben from Fratello. How does it wear, having seen it in person and handled it?
So I've seen a prototype when I went to Russia, right before, actually it was when the pandemic started. It was February 2020. No, if I mean, I have a wrist that accommodates pretty much any watch. I have to be honest. So if you have a very small wrist, it would not wear great. I have to be honest. But again, I don't think wearability is the one thing I would care about. Like when you go, if you're going on Mars and you're wearing one of those big suits, asking yourself, "Oh, this doesn't fit me quite right. I look chunky."
Right.
So it becomes secondary in a way to me. But I understand. Again, if I have to answer the question, if you have a very small wrist, it would not quite give justice to your wrist in a way.
Yeah.
I'm checking now. I should know this, but I'm checking now because it's a funny case size. The case is actually 55 by 48, and it's 15 thick millimeters, of course.
Okay.
But we wear a bit like a Panerai bronze if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
It's actually more reasonable than I thought. I thought it looked bigger. So that's.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I have nothing to do with SJX, but I enjoy reading. I think they're brilliant. If you go on their website, you'll find some wrist shots as well.
Oh yes, actually, I think I have that pulled up. If we can, and they had some. I think they had some pictures of the Mark I as well.
Yes. SJX. Yeah, absolutely. That's the Mark I.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells you there is 9 complications in the Mark I. At the same time on the watch, and then basically the Mars Conqueror is a simplified version of the Mark I that Konstantin thought the Mark I was too much and too far.
Oh wow, yeah, I do see a lot of different indications there. That's very cool. Oh, there's a wrist shot. Yeah,
it was never produced, and that's the wrist shot. Yeah. So saying that it's 53 because of the 2 crowns that come out, on either side. 53 sounds like unwearable, but then when you see it, it's obviously because of the 2 crowns at the bottom.
Right, right. It's a very unique shape, right? So regular dimensions don't really do it justice, I guess. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see if there's any last questions here. Actually, this is an interesting one. Mark Wheeler's asking, has anyone seen the Fortis Cosmonaut Amundi 18? It references more. I don't know that watch. I haven't heard of that.
I only know that, so Fortis with Bulova, Oyer, Seiko, Stormansky, Pobeda, they're all watches credited for at one point having made something first in regards to the exploration of space and watches, basically.
Right.
But no, I'm not familiar with the exact story about the Fortis.
No, I'm not either. And one more on a personal note from our friend Koos. What's your latest purchase, Pietro?
And the North Face, I don't know. Okay, so latest purchase, it's this, the one I'm wearing, and also the very last is the Big Zero by Raqueta, which I got
Nice.
last week. So I'm lucky because we represent over 30 brands, and some of them we officially distribute. So most watches I have to let go, but sometimes I manage to nail 1 or 2.
Nice.
But I have big ideas for the future because as an entrepreneur, when all the finances go into pushing the business rather than building a massive collection. So I'm not a collector yet, unfortunately. So I want to deserve to be as soon as possible.
All in good time.
Yeah.
Well, Thank you so much for joining us
thank you so
today.
much. This was great. This was a really fun one for us, and we really appreciate your knowledge of these independents and going so far into the Mark III in particular. It was just really, really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, credit to you, because this may be remembered as the first, as the first podcast to tackle the unknown, with, the watchmaking race to Mars, which is still in the beginning. It's still happening. I mean, it hasn't happened yet. So maybe we should think about one on Clubhouse as well. I can see
for sure
joining in and giving their point of view.
I'd love some more thoughts and opinions, and that would be great.
Clubhouse has been, we've just tried a couple chats on there recently, but that'd be fun to get together on there. Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun, as you say.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining us and commenting and participating.
And make sure to check out limited edition and of course everything else Scottish Watches. And we'll be back next week with some to be determined topic. We'll figure it out before then. But thanks again, Pietro, and thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.